الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أمسينا وأمسى الملك لله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وإليه النشور. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, my distinguished professors, astute learners, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good evening to each and everyone. First of all, I would like to extend my warm gratitude to organizing committee of this conference for giving me a very golden opportunity to present my paper in this prestigious conference. May Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless you all. So without any further ado, my topic today, inshallah, it's about the classification of knowledge in Islam by Imam Al Ghazali and Al-Farabi. However, to make this presentation very smooth, I apply a comparative method, i.e., I'm going to conduct a comparative study concerning Imam Al Ghazali and Al-Farabi in classification of knowledge. Okay. Of course, I'm so sorry. My name is Tijani Ahmad Ashimi. I'm from IIUM, of course, Department of Fundamental and Interdisciplinary Studies, Kuliah of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Science. Okay, so therefore, I will go straight to abstract of my topic. The abstract is as follows. As we all know, my dear brothers and sisters, distinguished learners, it is an undeniable fact that history, as we all know, history is the record of past events, and civilization is an advanced development in the society which is marked by rapid progress in economy, politics, science, knowledge, and information technology. Down the centuries, Islam as a religion of comprehensive way of life has paid a huge attention to the issue of knowledge. As such, it invites people to seek knowledge at all costs. It also urges them to think and contemplate in order to reach the true meaning of ontological reality. If that indicates something, my dear brothers and sisters, it proves that Islam is totally against ignorance and against illiteracy. Based on this fact, Islamic civilization during its golden era has witnessed some gigantic Muslim scholars who shoulder the message of Islam and whose contribution to the field of different knowledge cannot be underestimated. For instance, Imam Al Ghazali, who is known as Hujjat al-Islam, and Al-Farabi are both renowned Muslim scholars of all time. They both contributed immensely to the field of social sciences, humanities, and mysticism. Their contribution to this field have become splendid references to contemporary Muslim scholars in their academic researches. Thus, the main objective of this paper is to investigate the classification of knowledge by Imam Al Ghazali and Al-Farabi respectively. However, in order to carry out this or to achieve our objective, we are going to apply the comparative approach. That will be followed by conclusion and some recommendation. So the key word in that sense, our key word will be as follows: Imam Al Ghazali, Al-Farabi, classification of knowledge, Islam, Quran, and Sunnah. So without any further ado, before we penetrate into our topic, inshallah, we would like to shed some light on the general classification of knowledge in Islam before we can penetrate into the classification of knowledge by Imam Al Ghazali and Al-Farabi. How does Islam classify knowledge generally? As we all know, Islam has the general classification of knowledge which can be understood as follows. Number one, absolute knowledge. This particular category, it belongs to solely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It doesn't have any sub-categorization at all, and it doesn't have any classification, because this kind of absolute knowledge, it belongs to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is omnipotent and who is the most omniscience. 2. Limited knowledge. Of course, the second classification of general classification of knowledge in Islam, it has something to do with limited knowledge. This limited knowledge can be shared by all creation, all mankind, animal, angel, and other creations as well. So the reason why it is called limited knowledge, because it is opposite of absolute knowledge. It is what you call temporary knowledge. It is what you call relative knowledge. It is not absolute. So it can be further divided into two, namely gifted knowledge and acquired knowledge. Gifted knowledge also can be further divided into two, namely sacred knowledge and instinct. Whereas acquired knowledge can be further divided into two, namely praiseworthy knowledge and blameworthy knowledge. Blameworthy knowledge can be further divided into two, namely fardu ain, which is individual responsibility, and fardu kifaya, which is collective responsibility. And finally, the blameworthy knowledge can be further divided also into two, by external influence and by itself. Of course, because of the time factor, we cannot go into detail of this general classification. The full paper, inshallah, everything is well explained in my full paper, which is going to be published very soon, inshallah. Next, how does Imam, now we'll come to our main topic, which how does Imam Al Ghazali classify the knowledge? Before we penetrate into the classification of Imam Al Ghazali, let's shed some light about the biography of Imam Al Ghazali. Who is Imam Al Ghazali? My dear brothers and sisters, distinguished learners and professors, Imam Al Ghazali, his actual name is Abu Hamid Muhammad Al Ghazali. He is from Tus, famous in the world of learning as Al Ghazali. The Imam was a jurist, he was a philosopher, he was a debater, he was a theologian, he was a mystic, he was an expert in the principles of doctrine and those of jurisprudence. In fact, he was very well versed in various aspects of knowledge. He was born in the year of 450 after Hijrah, which is equivalent to 1058 AD. 1058 AD. Died in the year of 505 after Hijrah, which is equivalent to 1111 AD. Rahimahullahu wa arda. May Almighty Allah bless the soul of Imam Al Ghazali. Without any further ado, what are the main sources or main books of Imam Al Ghazali? Of course, without any further ado, we do have many publications for Imam Al Ghazali, such as Tahafut Al Falasifa, which has something to do with incoherence of the philosopher, which was written in the year 1095, or Ihya Ulum Ad-Din, which means the revival of the religious sciences, which was written in the year 1096 to 1097. And lastly, we have Al-Munkidh Min Ad-Dalal, the deliverer from error. This book was written in the year 1108. And many more. We do have many more, but the time cannot allow us to share with you those books of Imam Al Ghazali. May Almighty Allah his soul. Okay. So, how does Imam Al Ghazali categorize the knowledge? That is our next topic. Imam Al Ghazali has his own categorization of knowledge or classification of knowledge, which is theoretical and practical. Number one, Imam Al Ghazali categorized the knowledge as theoretical. What does he mean by theoretical? Is make known the state of being as they are. Whereas practical to Imam Al Ghazali, it has something to do with man's action in finding out the human activities conducive to man's well-being in life and hereafter. Number two, Imam Al Ghazali also categorized knowledge into presential and acquired. Presential to Imam Al Ghazali has something to do with direct knowledge or immediate knowledge, whereas acquired knowledge has something to do with indirect knowledge or rational knowledge, which has something to do with human effort in order to acquire such knowledge. Number 3, Imam Al Ghazali categorized knowledge into religious knowledge and intellectual knowledge. Religious knowledge has something to do with ulum al-shari'iyya, according to Imam Al Ghazali, and intellectual knowledge has something to do with ulum al-aqliyya, those knowledge which has something to do with human intellect and human reason. Lastly, Imam Al Ghazali categorized knowledge into fardu ayn, which has something to do with individual responsibility, and fardu kifaya, which has something to do with communal or collective responsibility. These are the categorization of Imam Al Ghazali. Without any further ado, because of the time factor, we cannot go into detail again. But the book, everything is well explained in what you call in our publication, inshallah, or in the book, or in our article, bi'idhnillah. You may refer to it, bi'idhnillah. Without any further ado, let's see how Al-Farabi categorized the knowledge. Vice versa, how Al-Farabi categorized the knowledge. Unlike Imam Al Ghazali, okay, before we penetrate into the categorization of Al-Farabi, who is Al-Farabi, by the way? His real name is Abu Nasir Muhammad ibn Turkan Al-Farabi. He was born of Turkish stock in Turkestan about 265 after Hijrah, which is equivalent to 878 AD. He was brought to Baghdad by his father, where he learned Arabic, mathematics, medicine, and philosophy. He started his life in Damascus, where he devoted himself to read philosophical books. Okay. Now, without any further, he subsequently left for Baghdad, where he learned from two gigantic logicians of that time, namely Mata ibn Yunus and Yohana ibn Haylan. He was known and famous as Muallim Thani. What does it mean? Muallim Thani means the second teacher. Why he was known as second teacher? It is simply because he was known as second teacher. It is simply because he reconstructed the science of logic founded by Aristotle. I.e., Aristotle was known as first teacher and Al-Farabi was known as second teacher because he reconstructed the science of logic, which was founded by Aristotle. And Al-Farabi, lastly, he passed away in the year 339 after Hijrah, equivalent to 950 AD. Here are some primary sources of Al-Farabi. As Al-Ghazali, like Ghazali, Al-Farabi also has some important books which were very beneficial, or which are so beneficial to us nowadays, and which are fully translated into English by some prestigious universities, such as Al-Farabi's commentary and short treatise on Aristotle. This book was published by Oxford University in 1981. Or Al-Farabi, the political writing, volume 2, which has something to do with political regime and summary of Plato's law. This particular book was also published by Cornell University Press in 2015. We do have many more books of Al-Farabi, which were so famous in the Western University and in Muslim world as well. Rahimallah Al-Farabi wa Allah. May Allah bless the soul of Al-Farabi. Without any further ado, how did he classify the knowledge? Unlike Imam Al Ghazali, Al-Farabi used the word classification of sciences. Al-Farabi classifies sciences in his book Kitab Ihsa Ulum. This is very famous book and well-known book of Al-Farabi, Kitab Ihsa Al-Ulum. It means the book of the enumeration of the sciences. In this book, Al-Farabi categorized the various disciplines of knowledge under 7 heading, i.e. Al-Farabi in his book of Kitab Al-Ihsa Al-Ulum, he categorized the various disciplines into under 7 headings, namely the knowledge of linguistics, number 2, the knowledge of mathematics, number 3, the knowledge of logic, number 4, the knowledge of physics, number 5, the knowledge of metaphysics, number 6, the knowledge of judiciary, And number 7, lastly, the knowledge of political science. These are the categorization of Al-Farabi in his book of Al-Ihsa, Kitab Al-Ihsa Al-Ulum. So as you can see, these are our early Muslim scholars who are well versed in various aspects of knowledge. The books nowadays has become a very good, the books have become great references for various scholars, either in the West or in the Muslim world. Without any further ado, my dear brothers and sisters, astute learners, great scholars, I would like to come to conclusion of my presentation today because of the time factor. What we can see and what we can say in order to sum, a nutshell, we can say the immense contribution of Muslim scholars to the field of knowledge is remarkable. Down the centuries, the early Muslim scholars such as Al-Farabi, Imam Al Ghazali have contributed largely to the classification of knowledge. For example, Al Ghazali classified the knowledge into theoretical and practical, presential and acquired, religious and intellectual, individual obligatory and communal obligatory. Whereas Al-Farabi categorized the various disciplines of knowledge under 7 headings, namely the linguistic, the mathematics, the logic, the physics, the metaphysics, the judiciary, and the political science. Their classification of knowledge has, as I said, has become a great reference for the contemporary Muslim scholars. Okay, this is the conclusion of our presentation. What can we learn from these, what we call the effort of our early Muslim scholars such as Al-Farabi and Imam Al Ghazali? That will be our suggestion and recommendation to this particular paper. What is our recommendation and suggestion? Number 1, based on our presentation, we will say that the contributions of early Muslim scholars such as Al-Farabi, Al Ghazali to the field of various knowledge cannot be measured in the small scale. This shows the love for knowledge for the sake of knowledge. Number 2, i.e., what we mean here is that these scholars, they love knowledge for the sake of knowledge. Number 2, my dear brothers, my dear sisters, academicians, astute learners, we can learn from these contribution of these great scholars that exercising ijtihad and creativity are highly needed for contemporary Muslim Ummah. What we mean by that is that the contemporary Muslim Ummah, they need to be very, very creative. They need more research. They need more ijtihad so that can help them to solve the various problems and predicaments faced by contemporary Ummah. Number 3, what we can learn from the contribution of Al Ghazali and Al-Farabi is that there is a strong need for mutual, beneficial, reciprocal relationship between the contemporary Muslim scholars and Muslim leaders. I.e., what I mean by that is that the strong relationship is needed between the scholars and our leaders so that the scholars will be able to produce meaningful researches that will benefit the Muslim Ummah at large. Lastly, my dear brothers and sisters, astute learners, great scholars, of Al-Farabi and Imam Ghazali is that the great lesson that we can learn from the glory of our early Muslim scholars and from the golden age of the Islamic civilization is that the strength of any civilization is based on knowledge. Why we say that? The strength of any civilization is based on knowledge. Why do we say that? It is simply because knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Thank you so much, my dear brothers and sisters. May Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your attention. May Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your listening. May Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your attendance. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.